Hello and welcome to Spectrum TV News at 9. I am Francis Oyima Edit, coming to you live from the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Bola Tinubu declares open 19th All Nigeria Editors Conference in Uyo. Senate begs NLC, TUC, ASU to call off ongoing strike action. Plus, France issues arrest warrant for Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. We will bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. Many thanks for joining us. First in the news tonight, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has declared open the 19th All Nigeria Editors Conference in Uyo, with an assurance that his administration will continue to provide an enabling environment for a free and robust media practice in the country. President Tinubu, who was the special guest of honor at the conference with the theme Stimulating Economic Growth, Technological Advancement, Role of the Media, urged media managers to be gatekeepers against misinformation and disinformation in the society. The president, who was represented by the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Muhammad Idris Malagi, said in fostering the pursuit of journalism in the country, the Nigerian government's commitment to freedom of press is not waned. The president used the occasion to assure Nigerians that the federal government would reverse a worrisome trend in the economy. According to him, he was aware of the pains being faced by Nigerians and had taken critical steps to cushion the effect of petrol subsidy removal on the citizenry. In a related development, the Akwa Ibom State Governor Pastor Omoino has commended the Nigerian media for their role in strengthening democracy and good governance in Nigeria, while calling on governments at all levels to protect the freedom of the press to enable it play its watchdog and agenda-setting role. Governor Oino, who gave the commendation while speaking at the 19th All Nigeria Editors Conference 2023, holding at the Ibom Icon Hotel and Golf Resort in Uyo, described the theme of the conference as apt, noting that it sought to examine critical issues in the nation as they relate to the role of the media and chart the way forward. The governor, who said the independence of the press is very important in a growing society, urged the press to try as much as possible to inform appropriately, even in the face of all pressures. He used the occasion to roll out his achievements in various key sectors, including education, agriculture, rural development, aviation, and security advancement, among others. Also speaking, the Cross River State Governor Prince Basio II, who was represented by the Commissioner for Information, Erasmus Ekpang, called for caution by media professionals, saying the trending use of artificial intelligence, AI, in the presentation of media items to the public, if not checked, was capable of destabilizing the peace in the society. In their separate remarks, the chairman of the conference, Sam Amuka, and the president, Nigeria Guild of Editors, Eze Anaba, stressed the need for participatory democracy for a better country, even as they lauded the continuum in the government of Akwa Ibom State. They extolled the rise agenda of the state, which they affirmed was already yielding dividends. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu is scheduled to join other heads of state and government in Bissau, Guinea-Bissau, on Thursday to celebrate the country's 50th independence anniversary and Armed Forces Day. In a statement by Tinubu's media aide, Ajurin Galale noted that The president will arrive in Bissau on Thursday for the ceremony, which will be hosted by President Umaru Embalo. A statement added that after the event, Tinubu will return to Nigeria on the same date. Recall that Guinea-Bissau marked its 50th independence anniversary on September 24, 2023, but the government had scheduled all celebrations for November 16, 2023. In the meantime, President Tinubu has said that poverty is not a shameful thing, but it is unacceptable in Nigeria under his leadership. Tinubu made this known at the 55th International Conference, Exhibition and Emerald Anniversary of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, with the theme Sustainable HR, Business and National Development. The president, who was represented by the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Nkiru Onyejocha, noted that in the face of global challenges, his administration is committed to steering Nigeria towards self-reliance and reducing dependency on others. Commenting on the roles of the HR practitioners, Tinubu said it was crucial in molding and effectively managing people to become catalysts for economic resurgence in an increasingly competitive and changing world. Elsewhere, the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, has said that President Bola Tinubu is committed to improving the lives of vulnerable Nigerians in the country. Shettima stated these at the Presidential Villa in Abuja while receiving a comprehensive report from the Presidential Committee on Flood Mitigation, Adaptation, Preparedness and Response. Describing the report as a testament to President Tinubu's commitment to the renewed hope agenda, the Vice President stated categorically that the Tinubu administration is focused on improving the socio-economic conditions of Nigeria's most vulnerable communities. He also directed the committee to present the report to the National Economic Council (NEC) for further deliberations and possible accession by the council. Away from that, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the Arab League have selected Nigeria as part of a special delegation mandated to initiate immediate international action to halt the ongoing war in Gaza. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuga, made this known in a statement. According to Tuga, the selection was communicated to Nigeria by the Royal Embassy of Saudi Arabia in Nigeria in Abuja. Tuga said the decision was taken in furtherance to the resolution adopted at the Joint Arab-Islamic Extraordinary Summit on Israel aggressions against the Palestinian people, which took place in Riyadh on Saturday. At the summit, Tuga said Nigeria stood firmly with the two-state resolution prescribed by the UN to help bring a stop to the Israeli-Palestinian war. We move to the Red Chambers, where the Nigerian Senate has adopted a motion urging the federal government to upgrade the Eastern Rail Line traversing Port Harcourt to Maiduguri from narrow gauge to standard gauge rail. The upper legislative chamber said narrow gauge has become outdated globally, hence Nigeria cannot accept it, adding that the purported planned rehabilitation of the outdated narrow gauge rail from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri should be suspended with immediate effect. In a motion sponsored by Senator Victor Ume, representing Anambra Central Senatorial District and co-sponsored by 16 others, it was stated that the Eastern Rail Line serves 4 geographical zones, thereby making it the longest and the oldest among rail lines in Nigeria. While outlining the advantage of the functional rail system, Omer said it would reduce pressure on Nigerian roads, thus government should adequately fund the rail system beginning from 2024 budget. Meanwhile, Senator Austin Akabundu of the People's Democratic Party, who represents the Abia Central Senatorial District today at plenary, took his oath of office and allegiance. The administration of Akabundu's oath of allegiance followed his declaration as the winner of the Abia Central Senatorial election by the appeal court. The clerk of the Senate, Chinedu Akubweze, administered the oath and allegiance to Akabundu. Akabundu had filed a petition challenging the declaration of Senator Darlington Nwokocha of the Labour Party LP as the winner of the Abia Central Senatorial poll by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). The Election Petitions Tribunal in Umuahia had on September 11 dismissed his petition for lack of merit. But the Court of Appeal on November 4th set aside the ruling of the lower court, maintaining that Akabundu's petition has merit by awarding him the judgment. The three-member court in its ruling upheld the petition of the PDP candidate and declared him the authentic winner of the election and ordered INEC to immediately issue him a certificate of return. In the meantime, the Senate today urged the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC), Trade Union Congress (TUC), and the Economic Staff Union of Universities (ASU) to urgently call off their ongoing strike in the spirit of patriotism and national interest. The Senate also mandated its leadership, led by Senate President Godswill Akpabio, to urgently meet with representatives of the unions to seek amicable resolutions of their demands. The resolution of the Red Chamber followed its consideration of a motion moved by Senate Leader Opoyemi Bamidele at plenary titled "The Need for Labour to Reconsider Their Industrial Action in the Interest of Patriotism and for the Rule of Law and Order." The development comes as NLC and TC leaders are meeting with the federal government over the ongoing strike. Recall that on Tuesday, the labor unions embarked on a nationwide indefinite strike over the attack on NLC President Joe Ajaero in Imo State, amongst other needs. Elsewhere, the House of Representatives is wading into the industrial action by labor unions as the Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, announced that the leadership of the National Assembly will be intervening immediately. The resolution was reached after the Deputy Speaker, Benjamin Kalu, through a motion of urgent national importance, urged the leadership of the National Assembly to urgently address the matter. Lawmakers were divided in the debate as some disagree with the reason behind the strike and urge the government to file for contempt against the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress (TUC) for allegedly disobeying the court order against the strike, though the labor unions have since said they were not served court notice. Other lawmakers appeal that the House should be neutral in dealing with the matter. Recall that the labor unions embarked on a nationwide strike on Tuesday over what they describe as an assault on NLC President Joe Ajaero in Owerri, the Imo State capital, on November 1, 2023, when he was about to lead a protest against alleged anti-labor policies of the Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration. In a related development, as the indefinite strike declared by the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress (TUC) enters the second day, union officials in Kaduna, Rivers, Edo, Yobe and other states have picketed banks, courts and government offices. Unlike the first day of the strike, which recorded partial compliance, all the government offices, banks and other financial institutions were locked in Kaduna today, the second day of the strike. The enforcement team, led by NLC Chairman in Kaduna, Ayuba Suleiman, locked the gates of the Kaduna State Secretariat along the Independence Way, where most ministries are located, to ensure total compliance. Also, all the banks along the Yakubu Gowon Way did not open for business except for customers who want to use the automated teller machines (ATMs). Meanwhile, the National Union of Electricity Employees (NUEE) also shut down operations at the Transmission Company of Nigeria (TCN) power plant at Mandu, while the headquarters of the Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company is still under lock and key. To the judiciary now, where the appeal court in Lagos today affirmed the judgment of the tribunal confirming the election of Babajide Sanwo-Olu and Obafemi Hamzat as the governor and deputy governor of Lagos State. The court dismissed the suit filed by Abdulaziz Adediran, governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), against the election of Babajide Sanwo-Olu. The court, in a unanimous decision delivered by the three-member panel led by Yagata Nimpa, dismissed the grounds of appeal raised by Adedira, popularly known as Jando. The judgment was delivered by Justice Yagata Nimpa, Justice Samuel Bola and Justice Paul Bassi. Recall that the tribunal had earlier upheld the victory of Sanwo-Olu as the elected governor of Lagos in the March 11th election. Meanwhile, the Abuja Court of Appeal has today reserved judgment in an appeal filed by Governor Abdullahi Sule challenging the tribunal verdict that nullified his election. Chairman of the three-members panel, Justice Oyemenam Onyechukwu, announced this after councils adopted their written briefs in Abuja. The appellant court also heard the cross-appeal filed by David Emmanuel Ombogadu of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. In the meantime, Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court Abuja today threatened to strike out the case of the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress AAC, Omoyele Sowore, if the prosecution fails to put its house in order. Reports say the matter was slated for rearrangement of the defendants, but when the matter was called, only Sowore was present in court. A prosecuting counsel, Mariam Okorie, told the court that on the last adjourned date, the court had ordered that the hearing notice be served on the second defendant, Olawale Bakare. She however said that she was not aware if Bakare had been served with the notice. The registrar of the court, however, confirmed that Bakare had not been served. Meanwhile, counsel to Sowore, Marshal Abubakar, told the court that he believed the prosecution was only trying to frustrate his client by its inability to serve the second defendant the hearing notice for him to appear in court. In a separate development, members of the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, have been advised to utilize the opportunities of their 3-week orientation courses to foster national unity and integration among themselves, irrespective of tribal and religious differences. The NYSC Director General, Brigadier General Wadi Ahmed, gave the advice today in his address to the 2023 Bakshi Stream 1 Corps members undergoing orientation at Kaduna State Temporary Orientation Camp at Government College, Kumi, Mashi, Kaduna. He urged them to accept their deployment to Kaduna State in good faith, warning them against night traveling, as well as appeal to the Corps members to always be security conscious. In another development, the Ekiti State government has commenced the second phase of desiltation of waterways, culverts, and access slabs in 13 communities within Ado-Ekiti, the state capital. A State Commissioner for Environment, Tosin Aluko, who made this known during the official flag-off of the segment of the project, explained that the program was a proactive approach to counter possible flood occurrences following separate flood alerts issued by Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, and National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. The flood alert issued to the state government in January and May this year placed Ado-Ekiti among cities and towns that may be affected by the predicted flood. Aluko recalled that the governor, Biodun Oyebanji, had in January this year approved a sum of 226 million naira for the dredging of 8 river courses and desiltation of waterways, as well as culverts in 26 communities to avert the forecasted massive flooding and its possible disastrous after effects on the state capital. And still to come in the news, Nigeria's inflation rate hits fresh 2005 high at 27.3% in October. Please stay with us.
For brilliant broadcasts and entertainment, sports on the go, and news around the world, watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court, my lord.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Many thanks for staying with us, and now to continue with the rest of our news stories. We move to Africa, where South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has fired the police chief as part of a move against security officials following reports of an attempted coup. Leading security figures downplayed the coup rumors that emerged over the weekend when Kiir was on an official visit to Riyadh for a summit. The later local media reported that 27 military and intelligence officials had been arrested. Next year, South Sudan is due to hold its first election since it gained independence in 2011. Recall that a 5-year civil war ended in a peace deal in 2018, but the agreement is yet to be fully implemented and the country remains fragile. We move to Ghana, where President Nana Akufo-Addo has urged African and Caribbean leaders to unite in demanding reparations for historical injustices committed during slavery and colonialism, terming the action a valid demand for justice. He said that Africa was owed reparations by countries that participated in slavery, as their practice had stifled Africa's progress. Akufo-Addo said these are an ongoing reparations conference in Ghana's capital, Accra, attended by leaders from African and Caribbean nations. Reports say the conference seeks to build a united front and formulate a plan to guide African countries and the diaspora in pursuing reparations. And while Akufo-Addo has been vocal in pushing for apologies and reparations from countries that participated in slavery and colonialism. And while Uganda's parliament has passed a bill allowing the state-owned oil company Ugandan National Oil Company UNOC to source and supply oil to the domestic market. If approved by President Yoweri Museveni, the bill will earn the country's decades-long practice of relying on Kenyan companies for oil imports. Members of parliament who supported the bill said it would reduce fuel costs by cutting out middlemen and fuel cartels that arbitrarily influence fuel pricing. Uganda's Energy Minister Ruth Nakambiwa recently said that the country needed to stop importing oil through Kenyan companies as it exposed Uganda to occasional supply vulnerabilities where Ugandan oil marketing companies were considered secondary whenever there were supply disruptions. Away from that, United Nations has said it will resume delivering humanitarian supplies and evacuating staff in Niger after the country's ruling junta lifted domestic flight restrictions. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, said the resumption of domestic flight operations will facilitate the monthly delivery of nearly 2.4 metric tons of medical supplies and other aid, as well as critical medical and security evacuations for humanitarian staff. The UN agency, however, added that it expects challenges fueling its aircraft. Elsewhere, UK Supreme Court has rejected a controversial government plan to send migrants to Rwanda and upheld a lower court ruling that it was unlawful and a major setback for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. A 5-judge panel at the UK's highest court unanimously sided with Court of Appeal judges that the policy was incompatible with Britain's obligations under international treaties. The judges agreed with the lower court June verdict that Rwanda risks forcibly returning asylum seekers and refugees to a country where they could face persecution in a move known as refoulement. Still in Africa, United States, US has said that it will resume deliveries of food and aid across Ethiopia in December, 6 months after they were suspended over corruption allegations. The U.S. International Development Agency, USAID, said significant reforms would ensure that the food supplies reached those who needed them most. It said the aid resumption will be on a year trial basis. According to reports, millions of Ethiopians face food shortages because of the effects of conflict and severe weather. Meanwhile, an overnight curfew has been imposed in Madagascar's capital, Antananarivo, ahead of Thursday's presidential election, which most opposition candidates have described as a fraud and are boycotting. The country has been extremely tense, with numerous opposition protests being dispersed by the police. Meanwhile, Antananarivo's police chief said the curfew was necessary after what he called acts of sabotage, including the burning of a polling station. President Andre Rajoelina is running for re-election, but 10 of the 12 opposition candidates have urged supporters not to vote, raising concerns about the credibility of the poll. On the foreign scene, the U.S. Senate has today prepared to take up a stopgap spending bill that would avert a partial government shutdown with little time remaining before funding runs out on Friday. The chamber's Democratic and Republican leaders say they support the legislation, which passed the Republican-controlled House of Representatives on Tuesday by a wide bipartisan margin. According to reports, opponents could invoke the chamber's SN rules to prevent a vote before midnight on Friday at 0500 GMT on Saturday, when current funding will expire. Meanwhile, both chambers of Congress need to pass spending legislation and send it to President Joe Biden to sign into law before then in order to avoid disruption. Still on the foreign scene, Qatari mediators are seeking to negotiate a deal between Hamas and Israel that includes the release of around 50 civilian hostages from Gaza in exchange for a 3-day ceasefire. Reports said the deal on the discussion, which has been coordinated with the U.S., would also see Israel release some Palestinian women and children from Israeli jails and increase the amount of humanitarian aid allowed into Gaza. Officials say it would mark the biggest release of hostages held by Hamas since the Palestinian terrorist group burst over the Gaza border, attacked parts of Israel, and took hostages into the enclave. Meanwhile, Hamas has agreed to the general outlines of this deal, but Israel has not, and it is still negotiating the details. Elsewhere, Hamas have blamed both Israel and the United States for the Israeli army's raid on Gaza's largest hospital. Hamas, in a statement, said the raid on the Al-Shifa hospital also constituted a failure by the United Nations to defend Palestinians. A statement added that the silence of the United Nations and the betrayal of many countries and governments will not deter Palestinian people from clinging to their land and legitimate national rights. In the meantime, UN Aid Chief Martin Griffiths demanded today immediate action to rein in the carnage in Gaza, representing a plan to help ease the crisis in the Palestinian territory. Griffiths' words came after Israeli forces raided Gaza's largest hospital, where hundreds of patients, including newborns, have been stranded with dwindling supplies and no electricity, and urged Hamas to surrender. Still on the foreign scene, France has issued an international arrest warrant for Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, accused of complicity in crimes against humanity over chemical attacks in 2013. A judicial source told newsmen that Assad was also suspected of complicity in war crimes for the attacks blamed by the opposition on the regime that killed more than 1,400 people near Damascus in August 2013. Meanwhile, international warrants were also issued for the arrest of Assad's brother, Maher, the de facto chief of a Syrian elite military unit, and two armed forces generals. Reports say the Paris court's unit concerned with crimes against humanity has been investigating the chemical attacks since 2021. France claims worldwide jurisdiction for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, the French authorities today released from custody a police officer who shot dead a teenager during traffic controls this year in a killing that sparked over a week of nationwide rioting. The officer fatally wounded Nahel M. 17 during a traffic stop in the Paris suburbs of Nanterre on June 27, with massive police deployments unable to contain often violent protests on successive nights that caused significant damage to businesses and property. The 38-year-old officer, identified only as Florian M., has already been charged with murder. While he is no longer in jail ahead of trial, he is under judicial supervision, which means restrictions are still placed on his movement. According to the office of the Nanterre prosecutor, investigating magistrates agreed to the latest request by the officer's lawyer for a conditional release, but said he is banned from speaking to witnesses or plaintiffs, going near the scene of the shooting, and from carrying a weapon. Elsewhere, a group of French diplomats have penned a highly unusual joint memorandum deploring what they allege is a pro-Israeli bias from President Emmanuel Macron, adding to pressure on the president after sometimes controversial statement over the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Recall that the French daily newspaper Figaro said on Monday that around a dozen French ambassadors accredited to the Middle East and North Africa countries signed a confidential note calling it an unprecedented gesture in the recent history of French diplomacy in the Arab world. Meanwhile, the exact content of the cable has not been revealed, although diplomats and sources who spoke to newsmen confirm its existence. Still on the foreign scene, falling debris are hampering efforts to pull out 40 workers trapped inside a collapsed Himalayan highway tunnel for more than 3 days in India. Recall that 40 road workers were trapped after a portion of the tunnel collapsed in Uttarkashi, in the northern state of Uttarakhand, India. Reports say the men were trapped in an area of about 50 meters and are safe, with food, water and oxygen being supplied through a pipe since the collapse early on Sunday, and frequent contact is being made with them through walkie-talkies. Meanwhile, the top disaster management officer in Uttarakhand, Rajit Singha, told newsmen that the plan is to drill through the debris, put mild steel pipes in it, and make a path for the laborers to move. And it's now time for the latest business and stock market stories. Here is Blessing Dixon.
Good evening, it's Business News and my name is Blessing Dixon. In the news, we begin with Nigeria's inflation rate. Nigeria's annual inflation rate continued to climb to 27.3% in October 2023, the highest since August 2005, up from 26.7% in the prior month. Inflation is the rate of increase in prices over a given period of time. Inflationary pressures have intensified over the recent month due to government's elimination of fuel subsidies in May and the naira weakness, which followed the central bank's decision to reduce interventions in the foreign exchange markets in June. Prices of food, which is the most relevant in the consumer price index basket, picked up to 31.5% in October, the highest since August 2005, from 30.6% in the prior month, amid persistent security issues in food-producing regions. Other consumer price index items, including housing and utilities, clothing and footwear, and transportation, also exerted upward pressure. The annual core inflationary rate, which excludes farm produce, rose further to a record 22.7% in October, accelerating from September's reading of 22.1%. On a monthly basis, consumer prices rose by 1.7% in October, following a 2.1% surge in the prior month. Still in Nigeria, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has said the $2.8 billion Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kanu gas pipeline project will be inaugurated in December 2023 after missing the 2022 completion deadline. The Executive Vice President Upstream NNPC Limited, Orisemiyiwa Eyeson, made this known at the ongoing 41st Nigeria Association of Petroleum Explorationists 2023 Expo in Lagos. Speaking on the theme, Energy Infrastructure Development, Financing and Monetization Strategies in Nigeria, Reducing the Risks of Entry, Eyeson reiterated commitment to delivering the project in December was a testament to the company's commitment to Nigeria's gas master plan. Meanwhile, the Director General, National Steel Raw Materials Exploration Agency, Kolawale Ogunbiyi, says the Ajaokuta Steel Company Limited needs 2 million tons of iron ore to operate. He made the observation when the Minister of State for Steel Development, Alhaji Uba Amadu, paid a familiarization visit to the agency. According to him, to have a sustainable supply of steel across the country, there is need for more investment in the mining of iron ore. He stressed the need for the government to provide special intervention funds to complete the Obi coal project, noting that once completed, the Obi Lafia semi-cooking coal project would reduce the importation of cooking coal. It's time for this Nigerian stock market report. At the end of today's trading session on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, a total of 297.35 million shares in 6,172 deals, corresponding to a market value of 6.16 billion naira, were traded. Compared with the previous trading day, today's data shows a 9% decline in volume, 83% improvement in turnover, but a 6% decline in deals. The current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 39 trillion naira. In the aggregate, 121 listed equities participated in trading, ending with 39 gainers and 19 losers. Oando led the gainers with a 10% share price appreciation, closing at 11 naira 55 kobo per share. On the losing side, SCOA Nigeria came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 9.68% at 1 naira 12 kobo per share. Oando recorded the highest volume of 28 million traded shares, followed by Alico Insurance with 23 million and Jopol Gold and Ventures with 20.4 million traded shares. This is all in business news, and back to Francis Edet for the rest of the news.
Thank you, Blessing Dixon. And still to come in the news, Man United CEO Arnold set to leave in Ratcliffe overhaul. To stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. We return to wrap up with the news stories. In health, stakeholders have pledged to achieve greenhouse gas emissions to as close to zero by 2060 and forge a sustainable path for the environment. The pledge at the national workshop to validate Nigeria's long-term low-emission development strategy organized by the National Council on Climate Change with the support of the 2050 Pathways platform. Speaking, the Director General of the NCCC, Dr. Salisu Dahiru, noted that the workshop marks a significant step towards defining Nigeria's lower-emission development pathways for a more resilient future in the face of climate change. Dahiru said the developed long-term low-emission strategy document will be supporting toll to the submitted revised 2021 nationally determined contribution under the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. Still in health, an international medical humanitarian organization known as Doctors Without Borders says Nigeria is currently experiencing an unprecedented diphtheria outbreak with about 17,000 suspected cases and close to 600 deaths recorded. The organization in a statement noted that 70% of the patients admitted in its facilities in Kano State were not fully vaccinated or vaccinated at all. Calling for sustained vaccination, the body said it is the only lasting solution to curb and prevent future outbreaks of vaccine-preventable diseases such as diphtheria, measles, polio, or tetanus that are responsible for numerous deaths every year. We move now to Taba David for the latest sports stories.
Hello, good evening and welcome. In sports, Richard Arnold is expected to leave his role as Manchester United CEO in the first stage of a club shake-up triggered by Sir Jim Ratcliffe's imminent arrival as a minority shareholder. Ratcliffe's £1.3 billion investment for a 25% stake in the club is close to being finalised. Arnold is set to leave his position at Old Trafford before the end of the year and be replaced in the short term by current Chief Legal Counsel Patrick Stewart. Richard Arnold took over the role of Manchester United most senior executive from Ed Woodward in February 2022. Ratcliffe is set to become a minority shareholder nearly a year after owners, the Glaser family, announced they would consider strategic alternatives, including a full sale of accepting minority investment. Ratcliffe is said to have influence over the football side of the business once his investment is confirmed. Moving on, Newcastle United are lining up a January move for Manchester City midfielder Calvin Phillips. Newcastle are keen to bolster their midfield to compensate for the loss of Sandro Tonali, who has been hit with a 10-month suspension for breaching rules around betting. Juventus and Bayern Munich are among the other club sides interested in Calvin Phillips. Phillips, a £43 million signing from Leeds United in 2022, has struggled to break into Pep Guardiola's team, and according to sources, he is keen on finding regular first-team football ahead of Euros in Germany next summer. His only start this season came in the 1-0 defeats to Newcastle United in the Carabao Cup in September, and he was left on the bench for league defeats to Wolverhampton Wanderers and Arsenal despite his competition in central midfield, Rodri serving a suspension. Phillips has been named in the latest England squad for games against Malta and North Macedonia during the international break, despite his lack of game time. Finally, Manchester City's revealed the price of last season's historic treble after becoming the first club in British football history to spend more than £400 million on annual wages. The reigning Champions League, Premier League and FA Cup champions have reported record revenues on £712.8 million, an increase of £99.8 million on the previous year. In contrast to City's record wage bill, neighbours Manchester United reported an annual wage bill of £331.4 million last month, £91.8 million lower than the salary cost at the Etihad Stadium. Manchester City experienced growth over the previous year across all revenue streams of commercial, matchday and broadcasting. And that's all we have for you on sport this evening. I am Mutabe David.
Many thanks, Mutabe. On our entertainment news, Afrobeat star Damini Ogalu, also known as Burna Boy, has threatened to hire 100 lawyers to sue Nigerian bloggers, stating that he is being pushed to do so. The Grammy Award-winning artist made this known in a post via his X handle today. This is coming almost 2 weeks after the I Told Them Corner offered to give Nigerian bloggers money to stop reporting about him. Burna Boy noted that although he had never paid any media house to publicize his brand, he was open to doing so in exchange for no publicity. Still on entertainment, Nigerian Afrobeat sensation Ricardo Banks has released his latest single, Fakosi. Reports say Fakosi serves as a testament of Ricardo Banks' versatility and innovation as an artist, as he seamlessly ventures into the dynamic world of Amapiano, a genre gaining widespread recognition globally. Meanwhile, Fakosi is produced by Del B and infused with infectious beats and an energetic vibe. In another development, Nigerian singer and songwriter Shake has teamed up with Grammy and Academy Award winner HER for the remix of his chart-topping hit single Lonely at the Top. The remix released today comes off the back of the song's record-breaking chart-topping run in Nigeria, where it set a new 13-week record as the longest #1 song on Turntable Top 100. Meanwhile, the single which talks about the loneliness, emptiness, and distress that comes from success, is one of the songs of Asake's sophomore album, Work of Art. Lastly, in the news tonight, Hollywood actor Will Smith has denied claims he was once caught having sex with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air actor Dwayne Martin. Recall that brother Bilal, who described himself as Will's ex-personal assistant, made the shocking accusation in an interview with internet personality Tasha K. Bilal claimed he once walked in on the Will Smith and Martin engaged in a sex act in Martin's dressing room. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for Will has said the story was completely fabricated and that Smith is considering taking legal action. And that's all we have for you this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. You've been watching Spectrum TV News at 9. I am Francis Oyima Edet. Many thanks and do enjoy the rest of your evening.